Hello, hello. Welcome to today's live stream. My name's Rebecca. I'm the founder of Hike Like a Woman. And I'm sorry about the time confusion. I put out in our email newsletter that we were going to start at 12 o'clock today, but then it was actually scheduled for 12:30. And so I put the wrong time in our newsletter. So if you're here, welcome, welcome. Today we're talking about Mount Kilimanjaro. More specifically, I just want to talk to you about whether or not climbing Kilimanjaro is a good idea for you with where you're at right now. And maybe kind of share some things that I think need to happen before you sign up for a trip to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. I have summited Mount Kilimanjaro twice now, so I think I definitely have some opinions about who should be climbing the mountain, when the mountain should be climbed, and how the mountain should be climbed. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. But first, if you're here and pop in the chat, tell me hello if you're watching. And if you have any specific questions about climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, I'm happy to check those out in the comments. And you can always reach out. You can find me on email, rebecca@hikelikeawoman.com, or DM me on any of the socials. We don't have to just talk about Kilimanjaro. If you're interested in any of our other trips, like Tour de Mont Blanc or the West Highland Way or Costa Rica, I can definitely answer questions about any of our trips right now. So I am using the free subscription to StreamYard, so I'll probably be kicked off here in about a half an hour. So anyway, I'm around. The first thing I want to do is I also want to mention that I don't have any slides. I have a couple notes, but I really want to just take this conversation wherever you want to go with it. So if I ramble too much, just tell me to stop rambling, and I definitely will. So as the founder of Hike Like a Woman, one thing that I've been wrestling with lately in the past 6 months or so is I feel kind of torn because I want to think that everyone in our community is capable of doing a big climb like Mount Kilimanjaro. But at the same time, I'm trying to balance the safety of the trip participants, the welfare of the group in general, and the guiding companies that we contract out for these big adventures. And so I've been thinking a lot like, how do I balance making sure that everyone knows that they're welcome on our trip, but also helping direct people to the right trip for them. And back in June, during our group trip to Southern Utah, I was talking to one of our trip participants, and it really got me thinking about our values and what do we stand for here at Hike Like a Woman, and what are the values that lead and guide us as a small business in the outdoor industry. And so I sat down with my small team and we came up with what we call the Hike Like a Woman Way. And I want to share what the Hike Like a Woman Way is, because it's going to lead into this conversation about whether or not you should climb Mount Kilimanjaro. So the values that we established that are part of the Hike Like a Woman Way are first to honor the experience, respect the land, your fellow travelers, and the spirit of adventure by staying open to new perspectives and ways of doing things. That's especially important when we're on an international trip like Mount Kilimanjaro. The next part of our values is I, and that stands for illuminate concerns. So share your needs and questions with your trip leader as they arise. Your openness helps the group thrive, and that's especially important on a big mountain like Kilimanjaro. But the K in our value is really important, and that is know your limits. Choose a trip that aligns with your fitness goals, and know that with training, you will be ready. Your trip leader is here to support you with guidance and tips, and feeling prepared keeps you safe and lets you enjoy the adventure. So really, readiness for these trips keeps everyone safe. The E, so hike, get it? Huh? Our values are hike. Equip yourself for the adventure, bring the right clothing, gear, and a positive mindset so you're ready for whatever the trail brings. And then the last value is roll with the flow. Weather shifts, delays, or detours are all part of the adventure. Flexibility keeps the journey joyful. And those are our values, and they all really pertain especially to our Mount Kilimanjaro climb. But I just wanted to set the stage and share with you our values so you know what kind of our expectations are when you join us for a big adventure. So the route that we choose on Mount Kilimanjaro, and it's the route that I actually really love, it's the 7-day Machame route. There's several advantages to this route. The first advantage is one that people don't think about. Lots of people choose the Lemosho route, which is another very popular route on Kilimanjaro. But the 7-day Machame route is really cool because it's like a half an hour from Moshi to get to the start point of the trail. The Lemosho route, it's like an hour and a half drive to get to that trailhead. So you get to start our climb earlier in the day. The 7-day Machame route also has a really high summit success rate, averaging 80 to 85% summit success, which is not that important, but it is worth mentioning because there are other routes on Kilimanjaro which have a much lower summit success rate. And it's about more than just the summit, but it is very special to stand on the summit of Mount Kilimanjaro. Another advantage of the Machame route is that it applies the principle of climb high, sleep low. So during the day, we'll climb up and then we'll come back down and we'll sleep low. And then the next day we'll go a little bit higher and we'll camp a little bit higher. So you just kind of work this progression up the mountain, which really makes acclimating very, very easy. And it's just a route that's really set up for success, especially when it comes to the prevention of altitude illness. A few other stats about the 7-day Machame route is it's about a 37-mile trek from the start to the summit, and then you end at a different trailhead. The 7-day Machame route has between an 80 and 85% summit rate that I already mentioned. You start at the altitude at an elevation of just under 6,000 feet. So you start at 5,895 feet. That's where you start your hike. The summit, of course, of Mount Kilimanjaro is 19,341 feet. So you climb up a significant amount of elevation and you kind of keep climbing up and down. So it's a lot of climbing, but it does adhere to that climb high, sleep low principle. You average, or our groups average, hiking anywhere between 40 and 50 hours. So that's like time on feet for those 7 days. So you can see we average less than 1 mile an hour on this hike. And our guides constantly say the words to us, pole pole, which means slowly, slowly, because part of the high success rate on the Machame route and on Kilimanjaro is your ability to hike slowly so that you acclimate better. So those are just kind of the trail stats of the route that we choose to do. And you might be thinking as you're listening to this, well, like 37 miles in 7 days, that's not huge mileage. That's not extreme mileage. If you're someone that hikes 5 miles regularly on a Saturday or 10 miles on a Sunday morning, you know that those are not huge mileage days. But like I say on Mount Kilimanjaro, like 1 Kilimanjaro mile is kind of the equivalent of about 3 US miles. And I live in the Rocky Mountains. So the mileage can be a little deceptive. And I think going into my first climb 2 years ago, I was like 37 miles. That's big, but that's not huge, especially when we're looking at West Highland Way or Tour de Mont Blanc, like we're doing next summer. That mileage does not seem like a lot. But on Kilimanjaro, it is a lot because you're just constantly going uphill until the last couple of days, and then you're going downhill, which I almost think going downhill is just as hard, if not harder, than hiking uphill. Let me give you some stats for Kilimanjaro trips. Excuse me. So we have had 42 women with us in the past 2 years attempt to reach the summit of Mount Kilimanjaro, Oruhu Peak. Of those 42, 41 women made it past Shira Camp. So this year, one woman made it the first 2 days and wasn't feeling it, so she headed back to the hotel and she went on a safari. 41 women have made it past Karanga Camp. So Karanga Camp is one of the higher camps. I think it's at 13,800 feet, and that's day 5. 38 women have attempted to reach the summit of Mount Kilimanjaro from Barafu, which is our final base camp at 15,000 feet before we summit Mount Kilimanjaro. Of those 38 women who attempted the summit, 36 made it to Stella Point, which is one summit point on Mount Kilimanjaro. It sits at, I think, 18,881 feet. It's below the summit, but it is still considered a summit point. And 35 women have made it to the summit. So of those who start the trek with us, about 83% make it to the summit. But of those who start at base camp to try to make it to the summit, 92% have made it to the summit. I think that our statistics are pretty average and right on par, especially considering that we're not a group of elite athletes or mountain climbers. Most of us, myself included, are just kind of regular women who wouldn't really even consider ourselves to be athletes. I bring that up because of those 92% who make it to the summit that hike with our group, 100% have an amazing time and an amazing experience. And that's really what it's about. It's about more than reaching the summit. There are a few things that are really hard about Mount Kilimanjaro, and I want to be really honest about that. So I'm going to talk about what's really hard on Mount Kilimanjaro. I'm also going to talk about what's easy on Mount Kilimanjaro, because there are some things that are super easy on Mount Kilimanjaro that people just don't talk about. And then I'm going to tell you why we've been so successful as a group on Mount Kilimanjaro. So what's hard, and probably the hardest thing for me on Mount Kilimanjaro, is it's easy to go out and do a really hard hike for 1 day or 2 days or even 3 consecutive days. But it's difficult to do a hard hike for 7 consecutive days. So that's what's difficult about Kilimanjaro. It's you're hiking all day long, you're coming back to your camp, you might not be getting enough sleep that night because you're camping, and then the next day you have to do it again, and then again, and then again, and then again, and then you find yourself waking up at 11 p.m. to start a summit push at midnight, hiking all night long into the morning, getting back to camp, and then hiking back down to another camp. So it's really the repeat stress on your body of those 7 consecutive days of hiking. So that to me is the hardest part, is how do you train your body for 7 hard days where you're essentially doing a really hard athletic event. But I'll tell you what's really easy about climbing Kilimanjaro. And these are things that people don't always talk about. But one thing that's really easy about climbing Mount Kilimanjaro is that all of our trips are fully supported. We have pretty much the guide to client ratio is 2 clients per 1 guide. We have porters that are carrying all of our gear. So all we're hiking with is a day pack. And sometimes our guides will take our day pack if they can see that we're getting tired, or if they're worried about our ability to still perform athletically on day 5, 6, or 7. Excuse me. Some of the times our guides will carry our day packs for us. But porters are setting up all of our tents. There's cooks that are cooking all of the food. There's people who are setting up the toilets and removing our waste on Kilimanjaro. So there's so much support from such an incredible team of guides, porters, cooks. It's really incredible. And that actually makes the climb quite easy, because all you have to do is sleep, eat, and walk. You don't have to think about the food. It's not like when you're backpacking, you don't have to roll into camp and set up your tent, and you don't have to cook your meals and filter your water. All those things are taken care of for you. And from that perspective, it's one of the reasons why I really like climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, because we have an incredible amount of support helping us get to the summit and back down safely. But it's almost meditative when all you have to do is wake up and walk. It's really powerful. And I don't know if you're like me, but I have a husband. I have 2 kids. I have a dog. My kids are in a bazillion activities and sports. And I feel like I'm always the caregiver and the nurturer in my family. And there's something really nice about being on a trip like this where all you have to do is just worry about yourself. All you have to do is get up, get dressed, and walk. And then the guides say eat, so you eat. The guides tell you to drink more water, so you drink more water. Um, it's really powerful. And sometimes I think, especially as women, we have a hard time letting other people take care of us. But we pay our guides very well. We tip our guides and porters very well. We use very reputable guiding companies. Um, and our guides are so happy to have a job, but it's their job to take care of us. And being able to just surrender that and being able to just let other people take care of us is really a powerful and I think almost a liberating experience. And I will never forget all of the guides who have helped me get to the top of Mount Kilimanjaro. So much support there from all of our guides and our porters and our cooks, of course. I posted an Instagram video sharing about when I got off the summit of Mount Kilimanjaro a few weeks ago. I was just really tired. And I got back to my tent and I had a little bit of time. And I just laid down in my tent. I was just so tired. I knew I needed to put on clean clothes. I knew that I needed to take my boots off, but I was just exhausted. And one of our cooks came to my tent and he had a bowl of warm water for me to wash all of the dirt and grime off of my face because it's very dirty on Kilimanjaro. And he saw me just laying in my tent, not moving. And he said, "I'm going to take your boots off." And he lifted my leg up and he took my gaiters off. Then he took my boots off. Then he took my socks off of my stinky feet. And he went outside and he shook all the dirt and the dust from my boots and from my gaiters. And that was a very powerful experience for me because I was just so tired and I just had to let someone take care of me at that point. And that's one of the other beautiful things about climbing Kilimanjaro is you learn so much about yourself. You learn so much about the women that you're climbing with, and you get to be really good friends with this whole support crew who's cheering you on and wants you to be successful. So that's the easy part about Mount Kilimanjaro. All you have to do is wake up and walk, and it's so refreshing from the busy lives that many of us lead right now. I think that there's 3 reasons why our Hike Like a Woman teams have been so successful on Mount Kilimanjaro. I mentioned that we have a 100% fun rate, and our trips are really fun no matter where they are in the world. But there's something really magical about Mount Kilimanjaro. 3 things really set us up for success this year, in particular. The first was training. Our next Kilimanjaro climb starts on September 21st. So that is more than a year. You have more than a year to train and get ready for that Kilimanjaro climb. But this year's crew was really focused on physical training. And there was a lot of support in the private group that we set up for trip participants, as far as like people cheering each other on when they were running a 5K or when they were going on a big hike. Some groups started to form with people who live near each other because we have women from all over the world on our trips. And so like this group from California started training together and they called themselves the Cali Crushers, and they were going on all of these really big hikes. But I think that physical training aspect really set our group up for success. We had one woman who had never camped before. She had never slept in a tent. Her first time sleeping in a tent was on Mount Kilimanjaro, which is pretty incredible. But she had a personal trainer and she was training with a weight vest and then her day pack. So when she got to Kilimanjaro and she didn't have her weight vest, but just the weight of her day pack, she was like, wow, this is great, because she trained so hard. And I'm going to talk a little bit about training for Kilimanjaro in another live stream. So I just want to mention that if you are feeling like you don't have time for training, if you don't have time to treat it like an athletic event, then this is probably not the best trip for you. Neither is West Highland Way or Tour de Mont Blanc. Those are trips we're leading next summer, and they're very physical. And if you're training and if you're able to train an hour a day, 5 hours a week, 3 hours a week, and then progress it as we get closer to the climb, then you're going to be set up for success. And the difference between being trained and untrained on Kilimanjaro, if you're untrained, when you get to camp, you're just going to be so exhausted that you might not even you can't sustain that day after day after day without any physical training. It's a safety thing. You don't want to get injured. So training really sets you up for success. And if you're untrained, then it's just not going to be very much fun. Like your fun tickets are going to be gone. So training is really, really important. And if you book one of our trips, we'll send a training program your way that you can follow, or you can talk to a trainer or ask ChatGPT to give you a training program to help you prepare for Mount Kilimanjaro. There's lots of options when it comes to training, but that's something that we work really hard to make sure that everyone on our trip feels really comfortable physically. Now, I had cancer, I finished cancer treatment just a little over 3 years ago. So you don't have to be a beast to climb Mount Kilimanjaro, but you do have to follow a training program. Another reason I think that we were really successful on Kilimanjaro this year was because of mental training and just having that resilience, that grit, that mental toughness, that ability to just keep on going when things are kind of tough. I talked about how tired I was getting off the summit, but you don't just get off the summit and you can't just stay at base camp, because that camp is very busy. You have to clear space for other people who are preparing for their summit bid. So you get off the summit and you have time for a quick little nap, you have time for lunch, and then you have to hike another 4 miles down the mountain to get to your campsite. So there's some mental toughness that has to happen when you can't just stop. You have to keep going and push through that. But it's the same as any athletic event, whether you're going for a run or a mountain bike or you're doing a cross country ski race or whatever. There's mental toughness involved. And I love thinking about mental toughness and grit. And there's a lot of great books and resources about mental toughness, imagery, visualization, mantras, so many things you can do to help build that grit and that resilience. And if you sign up for one of our trips, I'll help you with that too. And the other reason that our groups are so successful on Mount Kilimanjaro is teamwork. There is a big difference that happens when a lot of people will sign up for a Mount Kilimanjaro climb, and you'll show up and you'll meet your guides, and then you'll meet the other people who are going to be in your group with you. And while that might be kind of fun because you don't know who's going to be in your group, when you sign up for one of our trips, we put you into our Slack group and we start to build a community around that climb. So when you show up in Moshi to climb Mount Kilimanjaro, the goal is that you already feel like you're friends with the women in our group because you've been training together or you've been chatting virtually for a long time. There's a big difference, and you can see it on the trail between groups that know each other and then groups that are strangers that the guiding company just puts in one climb and calls that good to go. Last year on our climb, there was a group of guys from France, and they were having so much fun on the trail. They were always dancing. They were always singing. They were joking. One of them had a birthday, and they had a birthday party at one of the camps, and we invited ourselves to their birthday party. This year, there was a group of women from Denmark who were climbing together, very similar group to Hike Like a Woman, but they were laughing. They were singing. They were telling jokes. They were telling stories. They were sharing hugs, high fives. And there's just a big difference when you hike with a group that's going to support you and that's going to really be a team, because climbing Mount Kilimanjaro is definitely a team sport. A lot of people think it's an individual conquest to get to the summit, but really it's the entire team. It's that team of guides, porters, cooks, like we talked about, and it's the team that you're actually hiking the mountain with. Excuse me. I was like sick when I got back, and now I'm kind of getting better. We do a few fun things to build our team. We did some team building stuff before we even start our climb. We had a poetry slam on Kilimanjaro this year, which was really fun. And we had a competition who could come up with the best joke with the word toilet in it. So we do all of these fun things that kind of just break up the monotony, because you are hiking for a lot of hours every single day. So I think that if you're thinking about climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, I would think about those three things. I would think about, how am I going to train? Who am I going to train with? What training program am I going to follow? How am I going to fit training into my day? Especially if you're someone who's not a fan of working out, I would think about, like, where's my mindset, mental toughness, grit. How can I build those, like that strength, that inner strength? How can I build that before my climb? And then I would think about the third thing, and that is, who am I going to climb the mountain with? And am I going to be part of a team, or am I going to show up in Moshi and be put with a team that I don't really know? I think if you climb Kilimanjaro with a team, with a group of friends, with people you know, that experience is going to be so much better. And the other thing that I forgot to mention, but I think it's worth mentioning, is there's a lot of uncertainty on Mount Kilimanjaro, and probably the two biggest things that that most people struggle with when it comes to uncertainty are illness and the altitude. Illness, this year on our climb, we had some upper respiratory kind of stuff. There's a lot of travel, a lot of plane travel, a lot of germs. And there was some stomach stuff. So it's like, how can I stay healthy? Because if you can stay healthy and you're trained and you're tough and you're with a good team, you're going to make it to the summit. So it's trying to stay healthy on Kilimanjaro. So lots of good hand washing, all of those things. And then altitude. And until you've been to 19,000 feet, you don't really know how your body is going to react to altitude and altitude illness, altitude sickness, acute mountain illness. I just call it altitude sickness. It's very real on Mount Kilimanjaro. A lot of us prevent that with the prescription drug Dimox, which is pretty spectacular if you can tolerate Dimox. Some people use ibuprofen, but we can talk more about altitude illness if you're from a low elevation area and you're concerned about altitude sickness. When I talked about our stats before, of the 42 who started our hike, and then of those 42, I would say 39 of them, no, only 3 or 4 of them really had altitude sickness. They got too bad for them to continue onto the summit. So it's a very real thing, but also something to not be scared of, not to be feared, especially given the 7-day Machami route, which we choose to do. So are you ready for climbing Mount Kilimanjaro? I think you're ready if you can commit to training 3 hours a week, 5 hours a week, maybe even 7 or 8 hours a week as you get closer to the climb. I think you're ready if you're feeling like you have the mental strength to take on a challenge like this. I think you're ready if you're ready to be part of a team that's going to work together to make sure everyone gets to the summit, or everyone has the experience that they want to have. And I think you're ready if you're okay with uncertainty, because things don't always go as planned on Mount Kilimanjaro. So I want to take just a few minutes here to tell you about our next Kilimanjaro climb. And we are headed out to do the 7-day Machami route on September 21st through the 29th next year. So you have a whole year to get ready, and I'm going to make sure that you are ready. I'm going to help you along the way. And one of the ways we do that is when you sign up for one of our trips, we put you into our Slack group. And Slack is just a messaging app. But we really try to build community. It's basically like a Facebook group without all the Facebook junk. So we'll put you in our Slack group. I'll send a training program your way, and I can even work with my trainer here to make sure that that training program is tailored for any of your specific needs. There are a few things that I did with my training this year that really helped. And the biggest one was actually not spending as much time on the trails, but spending more time in the weight room and really focusing on strength training and really focusing on mobility, especially hip mobility, and a few other things. So we'll send you a training program. We have group calls with anyone, with all of our trip participants. We have group calls every couple of months just to make sure everybody's on track with training, answer questions, talk about travel and logistics. I'm also compiling a book right now because I have climbed Kilimanjaro twice now. I have a lot of notes about clothing, gear, training, nutrition, hydration. I have a lot of thoughts. And so I'm consolidating all of my notes into a little PDF. So we'll send you a copy of my notes. Essentially, it's going to turn into a book, and then I'm going to actually make that a workbook. So when you sign up for one of our trips, within the next month or so, I'll have this done, but I'll basically send you a workbook that's like a how to climb Kilimanjaro workbook. And if you follow this, you're going to feel great on the mountain. With our Kilimanjaro climbs, so far our youngest climber has been 32 and our oldest has been 69. Actually 70. We had a 70-year-old last year. And I just say that because at Hike Like a Woman, we really have a wide range of ages and ability levels. And I think that's something that's really powerful about multi-generations. A lot of times people will say, I might be too old to climb Kilimanjaro. And I'm going to just tell you that you're not, as long as you can commit to training and all those things. But we give you lots of support when you sign up for a Hike Like a Woman trip. And the other thing that I wanted to mention was that this year on our climb, on the last day of our hike, I actually interviewed most of the women in our group. And I said, what advice would you give for next year's climbers? And I have a 45-minute video with just their advice about how to climb Kilimanjaro. So that's another thing that you get when you do a Kilimanjaro climb with us. So once again, I think you're ready to climb Kilimanjaro if you have time to train, if you have time to, if you just want a challenge and want to do something really big and really incredible for yourself, and if you want to be part of a team that's going to help support you as you get to the top of Mount Kilimanjaro. So those are my thoughts on Kilimanjaro. If you're ready to climb Kilimanjaro, I think you can climb Kilimanjaro. I think everybody should climb Kilimanjaro. There's something so powerful about standing on a mountain that is 19,000 feet high. It's so empowering to know that you can get to that top of that mountain like your body, like you're capable of getting to the top of that mountain. It's really incredible. I can't wait to go back next year. I hope to climb Kilimanjaro every single year because it is such a powerful experience. So if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comment. I'll stick on for a couple more minutes. If you want to learn more about where you can sign up for our Kilimanjaro climb next year, you can head to our website. It's hikelikeawoman.com. We're Hike Like a Woman on all of the social medias. So you can find us at Hike Like a Woman. And if you're watching this after the live stream and you still have questions about climbing Kilimanjaro, drop them in the comments. Our team will be monitoring all those social media and YouTube comments. So that's it from me, guys. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. I hope to see you on our group trip to climb Kilimanjaro. John, our head guide, told me 2 years ago when I met with him before the climb, he said, Rebecca, climbing Kilimanjaro will change your life. And every time I've climbed it, it has changed my life. The first time I climbed it, I felt like I had something to prove. I had to prove to myself after breast cancer that I could still do something hard physically. And this year, I set out with the goal to learn something. And my goal was to learn as much about the language, the culture, the customs, and the mountain as I could. And that really enhanced my experience. And I don't know what next year's going to bring, but I know that it's going to bring me together with you, hopefully, and another team of incredible women attempting to reach Oruhu Peak at 19,341 feet. So thanks so much. Have a great afternoon. And I'm here if you have any questions. See ya.